hugged the wrong man by mistake. And that's how I found the love of a millionaire. What followed changed my life forever. You know how they say life can change in a single moment? I used to think that was just something people said to make themselves feel better about their bad decisions. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. Because my entire world shifted in the span of 5 seconds at LAX airport on a Tuesday afternoon that I thought would be just like any other. My name is Alexandra Williams, and I was 23 years old when I made the mistake that would unravel everything I thought I knew about myself. But let me back up a little, because you need to understand where I was coming from to really get why what happened next was so earth-shattering. I was living in San Antonio, Texas, working double shifts at a little restaurant called the Golden Dove. Not exactly the glamorous life you see in movies, but it was mine. Every morning, I'd wake up at 5:30 in our tiny 2-bedroom apartment, make coffee that was more water than actual coffee beans because that's all we could afford, and check on my mom, Amanda. She'd been sick for months, some kind of respiratory thing that the doctors couldn't quite figure out. Or maybe they could, but the treatments were way beyond what our insurance would cover. Then there was my little sister, Michelle, 16 and brilliant as hell, but stuck in the same cycle of poverty that seemed to trap everyone in our neighborhood. She'd sit at our kitchen table every night, doing homework by the light of a single lamp, because we'd learned to keep the electricity usage low, and I'd watch her solving math problems that made my head spin. That girl deserved Harvard, not the community college that was probably the best we could hope for. So yeah, I was working my ass off. Morning shift at the Golden Dove, then straight to the evening shift. My hands smelled permanently like bacon grease and coffee, and I'd fallen asleep standing up more times than I care to admit, but I was making it work. We were making it work. The thing about being poor is that you start to believe that's all you'll ever be. You stop dreaming about anything bigger because dreaming hurts too much when reality keeps slapping you in the face. I'd given up on college, given up on traveling, given up on pretty much everything except keeping my family afloat. That Tuesday, I was supposed to pick up my cousin Jake from LAX. He was flying in from Denver for our mom's birthday. Well, Amanda's birthday. Since she'd raised Jake too after his parents died in a car accident when we were kids, I was actually excited about it. It had been 2 years since I'd seen Jake, and he always brought this energy with him. Like maybe life could be more than just surviving. I remember parking in that massive LAX parking structure, feeling overwhelmed by all the luxury cars around me. BMWs, Mercedes, cars that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. I tried not to look too closely at them, because it just made me feel smaller. Walking through the airport was like entering a different world. Everyone looked so put together, so confident, pulling their expensive luggage behind them like they owned the place. I was wearing my best jeans, the ones without any holes, and a sweater that Michelle had bought me for Christmas last year. Looking back, I probably looked exactly like what I was, a small-town girl way out of her element. But I was focused on finding Jake. He'd texted me that he was wearing his navy blue coat, the one I'd gotten him for his birthday 2 years ago. So when I spotted that familiar navy blue coat near the baggage claim, my heart just lit up. God, I was so happy to see him. I actually ran across that crowded airport like some kind of romantic movie scene. Except, this was supposed to be a cousin reunion, not a love story. I came up behind him and threw my arms around him, pressing my face against his back. "Finally, you're here," I whispered. And I meant it. I'd been looking forward to this for weeks, but when he turned around, my whole world stopped. It wasn't Jake. It wasn't even close to Jake. The man staring back at me had these intense dark eyes that seemed to look right through me, like he was seeing something that I couldn't understand. His face was all sharp angles and shadows, the kind of face you see on magazine covers or movie screens. He was probably in his mid-30s, tall, and wearing a suit that probably cost more than my rent. But here's the thing that still gives me chills when I think about it. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look annoyed or confused like any normal person would when a complete stranger hugs them in an airport. He looked haunted, like he'd seen a ghost. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, stepping back so fast I nearly tripped over my own feet. "I thought you were someone else, my cousin. He has the same coat, and But he wasn't listening to my rambling apology. He was just staring at me with this expression I couldn't read, and the silence stretched out between us until it became unbearable. "You look," he started to say, then stopped himself. His voice was deep, controlled, but there was something raw underneath it. "I'm sorry. Have we met before?" "No," I said quickly. Probably too quickly. "No, definitely not, I would remember." And that was true. I would have remembered him. Everything about him screamed money and power, the kind of person who lived in a completely different universe than mine. But there was something else, something that made my stomach flutter, in a way that had nothing to do with embarrassment. "Daniel," he said, extending his hand. "Daniel Sinclair, Alexandra Williams," I replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and lasted just a second longer than it should have. "Alexandra," he repeated, like he was testing how my name sounded, and the way he said it, with this strange sort of recognition, made me feel like maybe we had met before, in some other life or some other world. That's when Jake actually showed up, wearing a completely different coat and calling my name from across the baggage claim. The spell, or whatever it was, broke immediately. "That's my cousin," I said, pointing toward Jake. "I should go," Daniel nodded, but he didn't stop looking at me. "Of course, but Alexandra," he paused, and I could tell he was debating whether to say whatever was on his mind. "Take care of yourself." It was such an odd thing to say to a stranger, but the way he said it, with genuine concern, made my chest tighten. I walked away from Daniel Sinclair that day thinking I'd never see him again. After all, what were the chances that a girl like me would cross paths with someone like him again? Turns out, the universe has a twisted sense of humor. I flew back to San Antonio that night thinking I'd never see Daniel Sinclair again. But God, I couldn't stop thinking about him. It was ridiculous, really. I'd talked to the man for maybe 3 minutes, but something about those dark eyes and that haunted expression had burrowed under my skin. Jake noticed I was distracted during the whole birthday dinner. "You okay, Alex? You seem like you're a million miles away." "Just tired," I lied, cutting another piece of the chocolate cake I'd made for Mom's birthday. But the truth was, I kept replaying that moment at the airport, wondering what Daniel had been about to say when he looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. Life went back to normal. Pretty quickly, though. It had to. The golden dove wasn't going to run itself. And bills don't pause just because you've had a weird encounter with a mysterious stranger. The Golden Dove was this tiny family restaurant on the south side of San Antonio, the kind of place where the regulars knew your name, and the coffee was always a little too strong. I'd been working there for 3 years. Ever since I graduated high school and realized college wasn't happening anytime soon, the owner, Mrs. Rodriguez, was like a second mother to me, and she'd given me the evening shifts because the tips were better. My section was tables 5 through 8, right by the big window that looked out onto the street. Table 7 was my favorite because it had the best lighting. Not too bright, not too dim, and it was positioned where I could keep an eye on my other tables while still giving customers privacy. It was a Thursday evening, about a week after the airport incident, when everything changed again. I was wiping down table 6 when I heard Mrs. Rodriguez calling my name from behind the counter. "Alexandra, mija, you have a customer requesting your section." That wasn't unusual. I had my regulars. Mr. Patterson, who came in every Tuesday for meatloaf, the college kids who studied here on weekends, the young couple who always split the apple pie. But when I looked up to see who it was, my heart literally stopped. Daniel Sinclair was sitting at table 7, wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my car, looking completely out of place in our little diner, but somehow making it seem like exactly where he belonged. I stood there for a solid 10 seconds, just staring, before my brain kicked back into gear. What the hell was he doing here? How did he even know where I worked? And more importantly, why did my stomach feel like it was doing gymnastics? "Alexandra," he said when I finally walked over, his voice warm but still carrying that undertone of something I couldn't identify. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by. How did you—" I started, then stopped myself. "I mean, what can I get you?" He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. The haunted look softened, and for a moment, he looked almost boyish. "Coffee? Black? And maybe you could recommend something I'm not really familiar with." He gestured around the restaurant. "Places like this," I finished, and there might have been a little edge to my voice. "Places that feel like home," he corrected gently, and that answer caught me completely off guard. I recommended the chicken and dumplings, Mrs. Rodriguez's specialty, and watched him nod like I'd just given him the most important advice in the world. When I brought his coffee, he wrapped his hands around the mug like he was trying to absorb its warmth. "Can I ask you something?" he said, looking up at me. "Do you believe in fate?" It was such a strange question from a man who looked like he controlled his own destiny with spreadsheets and boardroom meetings. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I think I believe in hard work and bad luck mostly." He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Fair enough, I used to think the same way. I wanted to ask him what changed his mind, but the dinner rush was starting, and I had other tables to take care of. When I came back to check on him, he was just sitting there, staring out the window like he was working through something complicated in his head. "Everything okay with the food?" I asked. "Perfect," he said, and he meant it. "This place, it's exactly what I needed." He came back the next week. Same day, same time, same table. And the week after that, always table 7, always asking for me specifically, always ordering something different but never complaining, never rushing, just sitting there like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Mrs. Rodriguez started teasing me about my mysterious admirer, but I shut that down fast. Men like Daniel Sinclair didn't date girls like me. Whatever this was, it wasn't that. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't look forward to his visits. There was something about him that drew me in. The way he listened when I talked, like every word mattered. The way he asked about my family, my dreams, my life, like he genuinely cared about the answers. And sometimes, when he thought I wasn't looking, I'd catch him watching me with this expression of, I don't know, recognition, longing. It was impossible to read. The 3rd week, he asked about Mom. "You mentioned your mother was sick," he said, as I refilled his coffee. "Is she getting better?" I hesitated. I didn't usually talk about personal stuff with customers, but something about Daniel made me want to be honest. "Not really. The doctors think it might be something chronic, but we can't afford all the tests they want to run." His jaw tightened. "That must be difficult." "We manage," I said, "because that's what you say when you don't have other options." "And your sister, Michelle." The fact that he remembered her name surprised me. "She's smart, really smart, but smart doesn't pay for college, you know." He was quiet for a long moment, stirring his coffee even though he never added sugar or cream. Then he looked up at me with those intense dark eyes and said, "What if I told you I might have a job opportunity for you?" My heart did that gymnastics thing again. "What kind of job?" "I have a daughter," he said, and something in his voice shifted, became careful. "She's 8 years old and she needs someone special to care for her. Someone with your instincts." "My instincts." "You have a gift with people," he said simply. "I've watched you work. You see what people need before they even know they need it. That's rare." I felt my cheeks burn. "Mr. Sinclair, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not qualified to be a nanny. I don't have any training or—" "Experience isn't always the most important qualification," he interrupted. "Sometimes what matters most is heart." He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "This is my address. If you're interested, come by Saturday afternoon. You can meet Anna. See if it feels right." I stared at the card, my mind racing. The address was in Beverly Hills. I could tell just from the zip code. A different world from mine. "I can't just leave Mrs. Rodriguez," I said weakly. "I'm not asking you to decide right now," he said, standing up and leaving money on the table. Way more than the bill warranted. "Just think about it." He was almost to the door when he turned back. "Alexandra, your mother and sister, they're lucky to have someone who cares as much as you do, but you deserve to be taken care of too." After he left, I stood there holding that business card, my hands shaking slightly. I called Mom that night and told her about the job offer, trying to keep my voice casual. Her reaction was strange. There was this long silence on the other end of the phone, and when she finally spoke, her voice sounded strained. "Sinclair," she repeated. "You said his name was Daniel Sinclair." "Yeah. Do you know that name?" Another pause. "No, mija. Be careful, okay? Men like that, they live in a different world than us." But something in her tone made me think she wasn't telling me the whole truth. Mom had always been protective, but this felt different. This felt like fear. I spent the rest of the week thinking about Daniel's offer, about Anna, about the possibility of a life beyond double shifts and unpaid bills. And despite Mom's warning, despite every logical reason to stay in my safe, predictable world, I found myself wanting to see what lay behind those haunted eyes. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. Saturday afternoon found me standing outside the most intimidating house I'd ever seen in my life. And I'm not talking about intimidating in a scary way. I'm talking about intimidating in a, holy shit, people actually live like this way. The Sinclair mansion sat on what had to be at least 2 acres in Beverly Hills, all white stone and massive windows that probably cost more than most people's houses. There was a circular driveway with a fountain in the middle. An actual fountain, like something you'd see in a movie about rich people. I sat in my beat-up Honda Civic for a solid 5 minutes, just staring and wondering what the hell I was doing there. The security guard at the gate had been expecting me, which somehow made everything feel even more surreal. He'd given me directions to the main entrance, like it was totally normal for someone like me to be visiting someone like Daniel Sinclair. When I finally worked up the courage to ring the doorbell, it wasn't Daniel who answered. It was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an accent I couldn't quite place. "You must be Alexandra," she said, smiling warmly. "I'm Maria, the housekeeper. Mr. Sinclair is waiting for you in the living room." The inside of the house was even more overwhelming than the outside. Everything was elegant and perfect. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that looked like it belonged in a museum. My footsteps echoed as I followed Maria through hallways that seemed to go on forever. But here's what struck me most. It was completely silent. Not peaceful silent, but empty silent. Like all that beauty and perfection couldn't hide the fact that this was a house where happiness had died. Daniel was standing by a wall of windows that looked out onto the backyard when Maria led me in. He turned when he heard us, and that same strange expression crossed his face, like he was seeing something that shouldn't exist. "Alexandra," he said, and I swear his voice was different here, in his own space, more controlled, more guarded. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me," I replied, trying not to gawk at the room around us. The living room alone was bigger than our entire apartment back home. "Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Water? Water would be great." While he poured water from what looked like a crystal pitcher, I tried to wrap my head around the situation. This man, in this house, wanted to hire me. A girl who'd never been a nanny, who'd never even babysat regularly, to take care of his daughter. "Where is Anna?" I asked when he handed me the glass. Something flickered across his face. "She's upstairs. She doesn't like meeting new people very much, because of what happened to her mother." He nodded, his jaw tightening slightly. "Isabella died 3 years ago. Car accident. Anna was in the car when it happened, but she survived without a scratch, physically anyway." The way he said it, so carefully controlled, told me there was a lot more to that story, but I didn't push. "And she hasn't spoken since then." "She speaks," he said quickly. "Just not to most people. Her therapist calls it selective mutism. She talks to me sometimes, and to Maria occasionally, but strangers." He shrugged helplessly. I set down my water glass and looked at him directly. "Mr. Sinclair, can I ask you something?" "Daniel," he corrected. "And yes, why me? I mean, really, you could hire anyone. Trained professionals, people with degrees and references. Why a waitress from San Antonio who you met by accident?" He was quiet for a long moment, looking out those massive windows. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost like he was talking to himself. "Do you know what it's like to watch your child disappear a little more each day, to see them building walls that you can't break down, no matter how hard you try?" My heart clenched. "No, I don't. Anna used to be this bright, vibrant little girl. She would sing made-up songs and tell elaborate stories about her stuffed animals. She'd dance around the kitchen while Isabella cooked dinner." His voice caught slightly on his wife's name. "Now she's like a ghost in her own life." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "The thing is," he continued, "I've hired professionals, the best child psychologists money can buy, nannies with perfect credentials, specialists in childhood trauma, and Anna just retreats further. So what makes you think I'd be different?" He turned to look at me then, and there was something in his eyes that made my breath catch. "Because when I watch you at the restaurant, I see someone who doesn't try to fix people. You just, Understand them. You see what they need. Before I could respond, we heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, hesitant footsteps. That's Anna, Daniel said quietly. A few moments later, the most beautiful little girl I'd ever seen appeared in the doorway. She had Daniel's dark hair but lighter eyes. A warm hazel that should have been bright with curiosity, but instead looked guarded. Cautious, she was wearing a yellow dress that was probably designer, but looked too big on her small frame. Anna, Daniel said gently, this is Alexandra. I told you she might come visit us today. Anna looked at me for exactly 3 seconds. Then her gaze dropped to the floor. She didn't say anything, didn't move closer, just stood there like she was ready to bolt at any moment. My heart broke a little bit. This wasn't just a shy kid. This was a child who'd learned that the world wasn't safe, that people could disappear without warning. Hi, Anna, I said softly, staying where I was instead of approaching her. I like your dress. Yellow is my favorite color. She glanced up at me quickly, then looked away again. You know what else I like, I continued, keeping my voice low and conversational. Cooking. Your dad told me you might like to learn some recipes. This time, she looked up and stayed looking. There was curiosity there, buried under all that caution. Do you know how to make chocolate chip cookies? I asked, the tiniest nod. What about pancakes shaped like animals? A shake of the head, but her eyes stayed on my face. Oh, you're missing out, I said with a smile. Elephant pancakes are the best. They're practically impossible to mess up because elephants are supposed to look funny anyway. And then, God, I'll never forget this moment. Anna smiled, just a little bit, just a tiny upturn of her lips. But it was real. Daniel saw it too. I could hear his sharp intake of breath, could feel the tension in the room shift. Would you like to show Alexandra your room? He asked Anna gently. She considered this for a moment, then nodded and started walking toward the stairs. Daniel and I followed, and as we climbed, he leaned close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and clean. She hasn't smiled for a stranger in over a year, he whispered. Anna's room was like something out of a fairy tale, all soft colors and beautiful furniture, with enough toys and books to stock a small store, but it felt unused, like a museum display of what a little girl's room should look like. She sat on her bed and picked up a stuffed elephant, holding it against her chest like a shield. What's his name? I asked, sitting in the chair by her desk instead of on the bed. I'd learned a long time ago that kids need space to feel safe. She whispered something so quietly I couldn't hear it. I'm sorry. What was that? Peanut, she said, just slightly louder. Peanut is a perfect name for an elephant, I said seriously. Does he like cookies? Another tiny smile. Elephants don't eat cookies. Well, that's what Peanut wants you to think, I said conspiratorially. But between you and me, I think all elephants have a secret cookie addiction. Anna actually giggled, a sound so sweet it made my chest tight. We spent another hour together, talking about Peanut and her other stuffed animals, about her favorite books, about whether elephants really did eat cookies when no one was looking. Daniel mostly stayed quiet, but I could feel him watching us, could sense his amazement at seeing his daughter engage with someone new when it was time for me to leave. Anna walked me to the door, a huge step, Daniel told me later. Will you come back? She asked quietly as I was putting on my jacket. Would you like me to? She nodded, still clutching Peanut. Then yes, I said. I'll come back. Outside, Daniel walked me to my car. So, he said, what do you think? I thought about that silent house, about the loneliness I could feel radiating from both father and daughter, about the way Anna had smiled when she talked about elephant cookies. I think, I said slowly, that you and Anna need each other, and maybe you both need someone who believes that broken things can be fixed. Is that a yes? I looked back at the house, where I could see Anna watching us from an upstairs window. That's a yes. Moving into the Sinclair mansion felt like stepping into someone else's life. Someone who belonged in a world I'd only seen in magazines. Daniel had insisted I take the guest suite on the second floor, which was bigger than our entire apartment back home, and came with its own bathroom that had a bathtub you could practically swim in. But the luxury wasn't what got to me. It was the silence. During my first week there, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, disoriented by the complete quiet. Back home, There was always something. Cars passing by, neighbors arguing, the old pipes in our building creaking. Here, the silence was so thick it felt alive, pressing down on everything like a heavy blanket. Anna was the key to understanding this house, I realized. She moved through it like a little ghost, her footsteps barely making a sound on the marble floors. She had her routines. Breakfast at 7:30, quiet time in her room from 9 to 10, lunch at noon exactly. Everything structured, everything predictable, everything safe. It took me 3 days to figure out that she was terrified of loud noises. I dropped a pot in the kitchen while making lunch, and the crash sent Anna running upstairs so fast I barely saw her go when I found her 20 minutes later. She was curled up in her closet, holding Peanut and rocking slightly. "Hey," I said softly, sitting down outside the closet door. "I'm sorry about the noise. I'm kind of clumsy sometimes." She peeked out at me from behind her elephant. "It sounded like the crash," she whispered. My heart broke. "From the car accident." A tiny nod. "Anna, can I tell you a secret?" I said, settling more comfortably on the floor. "When I was little, I was afraid of thunderstorms. Every time I heard thunder, I'd hide under my bed." She crawled out of the closet just enough to sit cross-legged in front of me. "What made you stop being scared?" "My mom taught me to bake bread during storms. She said the kneading was like giving the fear somewhere to go, and by the time the bread was done, the storm would be over." "Does it work? Want to find out?" We could make elephant-shaped bread rolls. That's how our cooking tradition started. Anna was fascinated by the process. Measuring ingredients, mixing, kneading dough with her small hands. But more than that, she loved the stories I'd tell while we cooked. Stories about magical kitchens where elephants really did eat cookies, where little girls could bake their troubles away, where families gathered around tables and nothing bad ever happened. "Tell me about your family," she said one afternoon while we waited for cookies to bake. "Well, there's my mom, Amanda. She's the strongest person I know, even when she's sick, and my sister Michelle, who's going to be a doctor someday because she's brilliant. Do you miss them?" "Every day," I admitted. "But I talk to them on the phone and I'm helping them by being here with you. Because Daddy pays you." The question was so innocent, but it hit me harder than I expected. "Yes, partly, but also because I like you, Anna. I like spending time with you." She considered this seriously, then said, "I like spending time with you too. You don't try to make me talk when I don't want to." That's when I realized what all those expensive therapists had gotten wrong. They were trying to fix Anna, to push her back into being the child she was before. But Anna didn't need to be fixed. She needed to be accepted exactly as she was, and given space to heal at her own pace. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after I'd moved in. Anna had drawn me a picture. Her, me, and Peanut making cookies in the kitchen, in the drawing. We were all smiling, and there were musical notes floating around our heads. "Are we singing in this picture?" I asked. She nodded shyly. "You hum sometimes when you cook." "I like it. Do you want to learn some songs?" Her eyes lit up, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked like a normal 8-year-old girl excited about something fun. We spent the rest of the afternoon singing old Beatles songs while we made dinner, her voice getting stronger and more confident with each verse. Daniel heard us from his office. I was in the middle of teaching Anna, "Here Comes the Sun," when I noticed him standing in the kitchen doorway just watching us. His expression was so intense, so full of wonder and pain, that I almost stopped singing. But Anna was completely lost in the music, spinning around the kitchen with a wooden spoon as a microphone, so I kept going. When the song ended, Anna noticed her father and froze, suddenly self-conscious. "That was beautiful, sweetheart," Daniel said softly, and his voice was thick with emotion. "Alexandra taught me," Anna said, hiding behind me slightly. "She's a very good teacher," he said, his eyes meeting mine over Anna's head. "And you have a lovely voice." Later that evening, after Anna was asleep, Daniel found me in the kitchen cleaning up from dinner. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For giving me my daughter back." I turned to face him, and something in the air between us shifted. He was still in his work clothes, dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, but his hair was slightly messed up like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked tired, but peaceful, in a way I hadn't seen before. "She was never really gone," I said. "She was just hiding. Isabella used to sing with her, he said quietly. After the accident, I tried to get Anna to sing again, but she wouldn't. Not for me, not for anyone, until you. The way he said his wife's name made my chest tighten. There was still so much love there, so much grief, and something else I couldn't quite identify. Can I ask you something? I said, then continued without waiting for an answer. Do I really look that much like her? He went very still. What makes you ask that? The way you looked at me that first day at the airport. The way you sometimes look at me now, like you're seeing someone else. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, staring down at his hands. When he finally looked up, his eyes were dark with something I couldn't read. There's a portrait of Isabella in my study, he said. Would you like to see it? I followed him down the hall to a room I'd never been in before. His study was smaller than the other rooms, more personal. Books lined the walls, and there was a large desk covered with papers and photographs of Anna at different ages. But it was the portrait above the fireplace that made me gasp. It was me, not someone who looked like me. It was literally like looking in a mirror. The same face, the same eyes, the same expression. The only difference was the hair. Isabella's was styled in an elegant updo, and she was wearing a formal dress and pearls. Oh my God, I whispered. The resemblance is remarkable, Daniel said from behind me. I couldn't stop staring. It was impossible. People could look similar. Sure, but this was beyond similar. This was identical. Daniel? I said slowly, not turning around. Who was Isabella before she married you? I mean, what was her maiden name? Sinclair, he said. She was Isabella Sinclair. My family has known hers for generations. It was practically an arranged marriage. Though we did fall in love eventually. Sinclair, I repeated. She kept the same last name. Different branch of the family. Very distant cousins, technically. Though we never really thought about it that way. I finally turned to look at him, and the expression on his face told me he was thinking the same thing I was thinking. That this couldn't be a coincidence. That there had to be some explanation for why a waitress from San Antonio looked exactly like his dead wife. Alexandra, he said, and my name sounded different in his voice now. Uncertain. Where did you say you were from originally? San Antonio. I've lived there my whole life. And your parents? My mom raised me and my sister alone. My dad. She never really talked about him. Daniel moved closer, his eyes searching my face like he was looking for answers I didn't have. This is going to sound crazy, he said, but would you be willing to take a DNA test just to rule out any family connection? The idea should have seemed ridiculous. But standing there, looking at that portrait, feeling the weight of too many coincidences, it didn't seem crazy at all. Yes, I said. I think we need to know. The DNA test results would take 2 weeks to come back, but I couldn't wait that long to start looking for answers. The portrait of Isabella haunted me. Every time I passed Daniel's study, I'd catch a glimpse of my own face staring back at me, and it sent chills down my spine. I started small, asking Anna casual questions while we cooked together. Tell me about your mommy, I said one afternoon as we made sugar cookies. What was she like? Anna's hands stilled in the cookie dough. For a moment, I thought I'd pushed too hard, but then she smiled softly. She smelled like vanilla, Anna said, and she made the best pancakes. Daddy says I have her laugh. Did she have family? Grandparents? Aunts? Uncles? Not really. Daddy said her family was very small, just her and her parents, but they died before I was born. Dead end. But something about the way Anna said it, like she was reciting something she'd been told, rather than something she truly knew, bothered me. That evening, while Daniel was working late in his study, I found myself wandering the house. It was massive. Rooms I hadn't even been in yet. Hallways that seemed to go on forever. But it was the family photos that caught my attention. They were everywhere. Daniel and Isabella at their wedding, family vacations, Anna as a baby. But as I looked closer, I realized something strange. All the photos of Isabella seemed to start around the time she met Daniel. There were no childhood pictures, no photos of her with parents or siblings, nothing from before she became a Sinclair. It was like Isabella's life had begun the day she married into this family. I was studying a wedding photo in the hallway when Maria found me. Beautiful ceremony, she said softly. coming up beside me. "Maria, can I ask you something? How long have you worked for the Sinclairs?" "Almost 30 years. I started when Mr. Daniel was just a boy." "So you knew Isabella well?" Maria's expression became guarded. "Yes, of course. She was a lovely woman." "Did she ever talk about her family?" "Her childhood." Maria was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her wrestling with something. Finally, she said, "Miss Alexandra, some stories are not mine to tell, but there is a story. There are always stories in families like this. Old secrets, old pain. Sometimes it's better to let sleeping dogs lie, but I couldn't let it lie. That night, after everyone was asleep, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I went into Daniel's study and started looking through his desk. I felt terrible about it, violating his privacy, snooping through his personal things. But the need to understand what was happening to me was stronger than my guilt. I had to know why I looked exactly like his dead wife. Most of the drawers were filled with business documents, contracts, boring corporate stuff. But in the bottom drawer, locked away behind a stack of files, I found a small wooden box. Inside were letters, love letters, written in elegant handwriting on expensive stationery. But they weren't from Daniel to Isabella, or Isabella to Daniel. They were from Isabella to someone named Ivan. My hands shook as I read them. They were passionate, desperate letters filled with declarations of love and promises to leave Daniel. Letters that painted a picture of a woman trapped in a loveless marriage, finding solace in the arms of another man. "My darling Ivan," one letter read, "I can't keep living this lie much longer. Daniel suspects nothing, but I feel like I'm dying inside every day I stay in this house. Anna asks about you constantly. She misses her real father so much. Her real father." I dropped the letter like it was on fire. Anna wasn't Daniel's biological daughter. She was the child of Isabella's lover, this Ivan person. But there was more. In the bottom of the box was a hospital bracelet with Isabella's name on it, and underneath that, a birth certificate. Not Anna's birth certificate. Another one, older, yellowed with age. The name on it made my blood run cold. Alexandra Sinclair, born on the same date as Isabella, in the same hospital, but where Isabella's birth certificate listed her parents, this one was stamped, "Adoption pending." I sat in Daniel's chair, staring at that piece of paper, my mind racing. Alexandra Sinclair. My name. My birthday, but not my life. What the hell was going on? That's when I heard footsteps in the hallway. I quickly shoved everything back in the box and closed the drawer, but I wasn't fast enough. Daniel appeared in the doorway just as I was standing up from his desk. "Alexandra." His voice was confused, maybe a little hurt. "What are you doing in here?" I could have lied. I probably should have lied, but something about finding that birth certificate, about seeing my own name written in official records from before I was supposedly born, broke something inside me. "I found letters," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Love letters from Isabella to someone named Ivan." Daniel's face went white. He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. "You shouldn't have been going through my things," he said, but there was no anger in his voice, just exhaustion. "I know, I'm sorry, but Daniel, these letters, they say Anna isn't your daughter." He moved to the window, staring out at the dark gardens. "I know, you know. I've known for a while. I had my suspicions when Anna was born. She didn't look anything like me, and Isabella was distant. I had a DNA test done secretly when Anna was 2. But you stayed with Isabella anyway. Anna needed a father, and I loved her, regardless of biology." He turned to look at me. "Love isn't just about DNA, Alexandra. You should know that better than anyone." He was right. I'd learned to love Anna like she was my own daughter in just a few weeks. But there was something else, something I hadn't told him yet. "There's more," I said, pulling out the birth certificate. "I found this." Daniel took the paper from me, and I watched his face as he read it. The confusion, the disbelief, the growing understanding. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Is it? Look at me, Daniel. Really look at me. I don't just look like Isabella. I look exactly like Isabella. And now I find a birth certificate with my name, from the same hospital, on the same day she was born. What are you saying?" I took a deep breath. "I think Isabella and I might have been twins, separated at birth for some reason." The silence in the room was deafening. Daniel stared at me like I'd just told him the earth was flat. That would mean, he started, then stopped. That would mean I'm a Sinclair too, by blood. But your mother, Amanda, might not be my biological mother. She might have adopted me or taken me in somehow. I thought about all of Mom's strange reactions when I mentioned the Sinclair name, her warnings to be careful. She's been acting weird since I took this job, like she's scared of something. Daniel sat down heavily in his chair. Ivan Mitchell, he said suddenly. What? Ivan Mitchell, Isabella's lover. He's my business partner. Was my business partner. We had a falling out about a year before Isabella died. The pieces were starting to come together. But the picture they formed was terrifying. Daniel, if Isabella was planning to leave you for Ivan, and if she was going to take Anna with her, then Ivan had a motive to want her gone, he finished. And if Isabella had been asking questions about family history, about twins, about adoption, she might have discovered something that someone wanted to keep buried. We stared at each other across the room, both of us realizing what we were thinking, that Isabella's car accident might not have been an accident at all, that it might have been murder, and if I really was Isabella's twin sister, if I was asking the same questions she'd been asking, then I might be in the same danger she'd been in. We need to call the police, Daniel said. And tell them what? That I look like your dead wife and found some old letters. They'll think we're crazy. Then what do you suggest? I thought about Anna upstairs, sleeping peacefully in her bed. I thought about the way she'd started to trust me, to open up, to heal. I thought about the family I was building here, the life I was creating. We get proof, I said. We find out exactly what happened to Isabella, and we make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. The DNA results came back on a Thursday morning that started like any other. Anna and I were making pancakes, elephant-shaped ones, of course, when Daniel walked into the kitchen with an envelope in his hands and an expression I'd never seen before. The results, he said simply, setting the envelope on the counter. I stared at it like it might explode. Inside that envelope was either confirmation of the impossible or proof that I was losing my mind. Either way, my life was about to change forever. Do you want me to open it? Daniel asked gently. I shook my head. I need to do it. Anna looked between us, sensing the tension, even though she didn't understand what was happening. Is everything okay? She asked. Everything's fine, sweetheart, I said, though my voice sounded strange even to me. Why don't you go wash your hands while I finish the pancakes? Once Anna was out of the room. I picked up the envelope with trembling fingers. The paper inside was clinical, cold, full of scientific terms and percentages, but the conclusion was clear as day. Probability of siblingship, 99th of 97%. Oh my God, I whispered, sinking into a chair. We're sisters. Isabella and I are twins. Daniel read over my shoulder, his presence warm and steady behind me. Alexandra, I don't understand, I said, and I could hear my voice starting to shake. How is this possible? How does someone lose a twin sister and not know about it for 23 years? But even as I asked the question, I was remembering things. Little things that had never made sense before. The way Mom would sometimes look at me with this expression of sadness I couldn't understand. How she'd change the subject whenever I asked about my father or our family history. The medical forms where she'd always write unknown for family medical history. We need to call your mother, Daniel said. I laughed, but it came out bitter. My mother? Is she even my mother, or is she just the woman who raised me? Alexandra, don't do that to yourself. Whatever happened, whatever the circumstances, Amanda loves you, that much is obvious. He was right. But it didn't make the betrayal hurt less. My entire life had been built on a lie. Not a malicious lie, maybe, but a lie. Nonetheless, Anna came back into the kitchen, and I forced myself to smile and finish making breakfast. But my mind was racing, trying to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing after Anna went upstairs to play. Daniel and I sat in his study, staring at Isabella's portrait with new eyes. I keep thinking about what you said, Daniel told me, about Isabella asking questions before she died, about family history. You think she found out about me? I think she found out about something, the last few months before the accident. She was different, distant, secretive. I thought it was because of the affair with Ivan, but maybe it was this. I pulled out my phone and stared at it for a long moment before dialing Mom's number. She answered on the second ring. "Mija, how are you? How's the job going?" "Mom," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." There was a pause. "Alexandra, what's wrong? Am I adopted?" The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long I thought she'd hung up when she finally spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "How did you find out?" The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. "So it's true. Alexandra, please, let me explain. Are you even my mother?" The words came out harsher than I intended, but I couldn't stop them. "I am your mother in every way that matters," Mom said, and I could hear her crying. "I raised you. I loved you. But you're not my biological mother." "No," she whispered. "I'm not." I closed my eyes, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath me. "Tell me everything. From the beginning. Not over the phone, this is too important for a phone call. Can you come home? I can't leave right now. Anna needs me." Another pause. "Then I'll come to you." "Mom." "No, you're too sick to travel. This is more important than my health, Mija. Some secrets shouldn't be kept any longer." She hung up before I could protest further. I sat there holding the phone, feeling like I was drowning in questions I wasn't sure I wanted the answers to. Daniel had been quietly listening to my side of the conversation. "She's coming here, apparently." I looked up at him. "Daniel, what if we're wrong about everything? What if Isabella's death really was just an accident, and we're seeing conspiracies where there aren't any? Then we'll deal with that. But Alexandra, you can't ignore the evidence, the identical appearance, the birth certificate, the affair, the suspicious circumstances of the accident. There are too many coincidences." He was right, but that didn't make it easier to accept. That afternoon, while Anna was taking her quiet time, I found myself going through more of Isabella's things. Daniel had given me permission to look through her room, her belongings, anything that might give us clues about what she'd discovered. Isabella's bedroom was like a museum, everything perfectly preserved, untouched since her death. It felt wrong being in there, like I was violating something sacred, but I pushed through the discomfort in her jewelry box. Hidden behind a false back, I found more letters. These weren't love letters to Ivan. These were letters from a private investigator, Mrs. Sinclair. One letter read, "I've located the records you requested regarding the 1999 births at Cedars-Sinai. As suspected, there were indeed twins born to Hope Sinclair on that date. One child remained with the family, while the other was placed with a woman named Amanda Williams in San Antonio, Texas. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely read the rest. Hope Sinclair, that name appeared in several letters, along with references to a family scandal and a cover-up that goes back 25 years. There were photographs too, hospital records, birth certificates, and a picture of a young woman who looked exactly like Isabella and me, holding two babies. The woman was labeled as Hope Sinclair, age 17, our mother, our real mother. But it was the final letter that made my blood run cold. "Mrs. Sinclair, I must advise you to be extremely careful with this information. The people involved in covering up your birth circumstances are still alive and still powerful. Your investigation has not gone unnoticed. I strongly recommend you cease all inquiries immediately for your own safety." The letter was dated 2 weeks before Isabella's accident. "Daniel," I called out, my voice echoing through the house. He appeared in the doorway seconds later. "What is it?" I handed him the letters with trembling hands. Isabella didn't just know about me. She was actively investigating our birth, our real family, and someone warned her to stop. Daniel read through the letters, his expression growing darker with each page. "Ivan," he said finally. "It has to be Ivan. He was there when Isabella died. He was in the car behind her when she crashed. He was following her. He said he was worried about her, that she'd been acting strange. But what if he wasn't following her to protect her? What if he was following her to stop her?" The pieces were starting to fit together in a horrible, terrifying way. Isabella had discovered the truth about our birth, about the family secrets that someone had worked very hard to bury. She'd been planning to leave Daniel anyway, to start a new life with Ivan. But when she started asking questions about twins and adoptions and cover-ups, she became a threat. "We need to find this Hope Sinclair," I said. "If she's our mother, if she's still alive, She might have answers. And if Yvonne killed Isabella to keep her quiet, then he might try to kill me too. Once he realizes I'm asking the same questions, we stared at each other across Isabella's bedroom, both of us understanding that we'd crossed a line. This wasn't just about family secrets anymore. This was about murder and cover-ups and dangerous people who would do anything to protect their secrets. "Alexandra," Daniel said quietly, "maybe you should leave. Go back to San Antonio until we figure this out." "No." The word came out stronger than I felt. "Anna needs me, and Isabella deserves justice. I'm not running away. Even if it means putting yourself in danger." I thought about Anna's smile, about the progress she'd made, about the family we were building together. I thought about Isabella, my twin sister I'd never known, who died trying to uncover the truth about our past, especially if it means putting myself in danger. I said, "This is my fight now, too." Mom arrived at the mansion 3 days later, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. The California sun seemed too bright for her pale complexion, and she kept clutching her purse like it contained the secrets of the universe, which, as it turned out, it kind of did. I met her at the front door, and for a moment we just stared at each other. This woman who had raised me, who had kissed my scraped knees and made me soup when I was sick, who had worked 3 jobs to keep food on our table. Suddenly, she felt like a stranger. "Mija," she said softly, and her voice broke on that one word. "Mom," I replied, but even that felt different now. Daniel had offered to give us privacy, but I asked him to stay. After everything we'd discovered together, he felt more like family than the woman standing in front of me. Anna was at a playdate with a neighbor, which was probably for the best. This conversation was going to be hard enough without trying to protect a child's innocence at the same time. We sat in the living room, the same room where Daniel had first told me about Anna, where this whole impossible journey had begun. Mom kept looking around at the expensive furniture and artwork, her eyes wide with something between awe and fear. "So this is where you've been living," she said. "Mom," I said gently, "we need to talk about who I really am." She closed her eyes and took a shaky breath. "I always knew this day would come. I just hoped. I hoped it would be later, when I was gone. Maybe, when it couldn't hurt as much. Tell me everything. From the beginning." Mom opened her purse and pulled out an old envelope, yellowed with age. 25 years ago, I was working as a housekeeper for the Sinclair family, not this branch, the old money Sinclairs, the ones with the big estate in Pasadena. My heart started beating faster. "You worked for them." I was young, just 18, and I needed the job desperately. My own mother had just died, and I had nowhere else to go. She paused, her fingers trembling as she opened the envelope. The family had a daughter, Hope. She was just 17, beautiful, and completely rebellious. She pulled out a photograph, the same young woman I'd seen in Isabella's investigator files. But this picture was different, more personal. It showed Hope Sinclair holding 2 babies. But in this photo, you could see the love and anguish on her face. Hope got pregnant by one of the gardeners. Mom continued. A boy named Miguel who was only a year older than her. The family was furious. This was 1999, and the Sinclairs had a reputation to protect. So they made her give up the babies. Not exactly. Mom's voice got quieter. Hope loved those babies. She named them Isabella and Alexandra. She wanted to keep them, wanted to run away with Miguel and start a family. I felt Daniel shift beside me, but I couldn't look away from my mother's face. What happened? The family found out about her plans. Miguel was deported, sent back to Mexico before Hope could say goodbye. And the babies. She paused, wiping tears from her eyes. The family decided they could cover up one baby. They could pass off Isabella as an orphan they'd taken in. A distant relative, but 2 babies. That would raise too many questions. The room felt like it was spinning. So they separated us. Hope was heartbroken. She begged them not to split you girls up. But her father was adamant. One baby would stay with the family and the other had to disappear completely. And that's where you came in. Mom nodded. Mrs. Sinclair, Hope's mother, offered me money. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. Enough to disappear, to start over somewhere far away, to raise a child as my own. So you took me? I took you because I couldn't bear the thought of what might happen if I didn't, she said, her voice getting stronger. Mrs. Sinclair talked about other options: adoption agencies, foster care, people who might not ask questions about paperwork. I knew you'd be safer with me. I stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, the manicured gardens looked like something from a fairy tale, but nothing felt magical anymore. Everything felt broken. So my entire life has been a lie. Your life has been real, Mom said firmly. My love for you has been real. Michelle's love has been real. The family we built together, that's all real. But I'm not Alexandra Williams. I'm Alexandra Sinclair. You're whoever you choose to be. I turned back to face her. What happened to Hope, our real mother? Mom's face crumpled. She died 2 years later. Car accident, just like Isabella. The Sinclair family has very bad luck with car accidents. The implication hung in the air like a dark cloud. Daniel leaned forward in his chair. Are you saying Hope's death wasn't an accident either? I'm saying the Sinclair family has always been very good at making problems disappear. Mom replied carefully. Hope was asking too many questions after you girls were born. She wanted to know where Alexandra had gone, wanted to visit, wanted to make sure she was okay. So they killed her too. I can't prove that. But Hope was a careful driver, and her car went off a cliff on a clear day with perfect road conditions. Mom looked directly at me. Just like Isabella's accident happened on a straight stretch of highway, with no explanation for why she lost control. I felt sick. How many people have they killed to keep this secret? I don't know. But when Isabella started asking questions about twins, about adoptions from 1999, I knew she was in danger. I tried to warn her. You knew Isabella. Mom pulled out another photograph. This one showed Isabella and me as toddlers, side by side. We were identical except for our clothes. I kept in touch, from a distance. Always from a distance. I'd get pictures occasionally, updates on how Isabella was doing. When she married Daniel, I was so happy for her. She seemed to have found love, found safety. But then she started investigating. She hired a private detective, started asking about Hope Sinclair, about twin births in 1999. The investigator traced the adoption records and found me. Mom's voice dropped to a whisper. Isabella called me 2 weeks before she died. My blood ran cold. She called you. She wanted to meet you. She was planning to leave Daniel, not because she didn't love him, but because she'd discovered that Anna wasn't his daughter, and she felt trapped in a marriage built on lies. Ivan's daughter, Daniel said quietly. Mom looked at him with surprise. You know about Ivan. We found the letters, I said. Love letters from Isabella to Ivan. Ivan Mitchell has been involved with the Sinclair family for decades. He was one of the people who helped cover up your birth. He was there the night you girls were born. Everything clicked into place with horrible clarity. Ivan hadn't just been Isabella's lover. He'd been part of the conspiracy from the beginning, when Isabella started investigating her past. When she threatened to expose the truth about the twins, Ivan had to stop her. He killed her, I said. Ivan killed Isabella to protect the secret. And now he knows about you, Mom said, looking at me with terrified eyes. When I heard you were working for Daniel Sinclair, when I realized you were living in Beverly Hills, I knew it was only a matter of time before someone put the pieces together. That's why you were so afraid when I took this job. I've been terrified every day since you moved into this house, because Ivan Mitchell is still out there, and he still has secrets to protect. Daniel stood up, his face grim. We need to go to the police. With what evidence? Mom asked. Everything I've told you is just stories, rumors, things I overheard 25 years ago. Do you think the police will believe that one of Beverly Hills' most prominent businessmen has been murdering people to cover up an adoption scandal? She was right. And we all knew it, but sitting there doing nothing felt impossible too. There has to be something, I said. Some proof, some evidence we can find. Mom reached into her purse one more time and pulled out a key. There might be. Hope gave me this before she died. She said if anything ever happened to her, if the truth ever needed to come out, I should use it. What is it? A safety deposit box in downtown LA. Hope left everything there. Documents, photographs, proof of what really happened the night you girls were born. I took the key from her trembling hands. It was small, unremarkable, but it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. 25 years I've carried that key, Mom said. 25 years I've prayed I'd never have to use it, but now it's time for the truth. I finished. The safety deposit box contained enough evidence to bury Ivan Mitchell and half of Beverly Hills with him: medical records, birth certificates, photographs of Hope Sinclair pregnant and terrified, and most damning of all, a written confession from Hope herself, detailing everything that happened the night Isabella and I were born. But it was the video that changed everything. Hope had recorded herself just days before her death, sitting in what looked like a hotel room, speaking directly to the camera with the desperate urgency of someone who knew their time was running out. "If you're watching this," she said, her voice shaky but determined, "then something has happened to me. My name is Hope Sinclair, and I need the world to know what my family did to my daughters. Daniel." Mom and I watched in silence as Hope told her story, how she'd fallen in love with Miguel, how her family had threatened both their lives if she didn't cooperate, how Yvonne Mitchell had been the one to arrange everything, the separation of the twins, the cover-up, the lies that followed. "Ivan has been planning this for years," Hope said on the recording. "He wants control of the Sinclair fortune, and he'll eliminate anyone who stands in his way. He's already threatened to kill Miguel if I don't cooperate. And now," she paused, touching her stomach, "and I realized this video was made when she was still pregnant. Now he's talking about eliminating problems permanently." The video ended with Hope's terrified face, and I felt like I was looking at a ghost, my biological mother, dead for over 20 years, warning us about a man who was still out there, a man who had killed Isabella, and who probably knew exactly who I was. "We have to go to the police now," Daniel said, his voice tight with anger. "This is enough evidence to—" He stopped mid-sentence, his face going pale as he looked toward the window. "What is it?" I asked, but I followed his gaze and saw what had made him freeze. A black sedan was parked across the street from the house. It had been there when we came back from the bank, and it was still there now, 3 hours later. "We're being watched," Daniel said quietly. Mom grabbed my arm. "Mija, we need to leave now." "I'm not leaving, Anna," I said immediately. "She's at the neighbors, but I'm not abandoning her." "Ivan won't hurt Anna," Daniel said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. "She's his daughter. Whatever else he is, he wouldn't—" "Are you willing to bet her life on that?" I interrupted. "Because I'm not." We were still arguing about what to do when my phone rang. "Unknown number. Don't answer it," Mom said, but something made me pick up anyway. "Hello, Alexandra?" The voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of menace underneath. Or should I say, "Alexandra Sinclair?" My blood turned to ice. "Who is this? I think you know we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you." "Oh, but you do. You see, you've been asking the same questions your sister asked, poking around in the same places, disturbing the same carefully buried secrets, and we both know how that ended for Isabella." I looked at Daniel and Mom, both of them staring at me with terrified expressions. "What do you want? Meet me at the Griffith Observatory in 1 hour. Come alone, or the little girl pays the price. Anna's not even here. Isn't she, little blonde girl, yellow dress, playing at the Henderson house 3 doors down? She has beautiful hair, just like her mother did." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. "He has Anna, or he knows where she is. He wants to meet me at Griffith Observatory." "You're not going," Daniel said immediately. "If I don't go, he'll hurt her. If you do go, he'll kill you. Just like he killed Isabella." "Then what do you suggest?" I snapped, fear making me angry. "Let him murder an 8-year-old girl because I'm too scared to face him." Mom stood up abruptly. "There's another way." We both turned to look at her. "The police won't act fast enough, and Yvonne knows that. But there's someone else. Someone who's been hunting Ivan for years." "Who?" "Miguel." I stared at her. "Miguel, the gardener. He's still alive. He's been living in Mexico, but he never stopped loving Hope, never stopped wanting justice for what they did to her, to your family. I've kept in touch with him over the years." "Mom, he can't possibly get here in time. He's already here. He's been watching Ivan for months, waiting for the right moment. When I told him about you, about what was happening, he came to Los Angeles immediately." She pulled out her phone and made a call, speaking rapidly in Spanish when she hung up. She looked at us with grim determination. "Miguel will be at the observatory. He'll be watching, waiting. But Alexandra, You still have to go. Ivan will know if you don't show up." "This is insane," Daniel said. "We're talking about sending her to meet a murderer with no backup except a man we haven't seen in 25 years. You have a better idea," Mom challenged. "Yes, I'm going with her." "No," I said immediately. "He said come alone." "I don't care what he said. I'm not letting you face him by yourself." I looked at Daniel. This man who had become so important to me, who had given me a family I never knew I wanted. The idea of putting him in danger made me feel sick. "Daniel, you have to think about Anna. If something happens to both of us, if something happens to you, Anna loses the only mother figure she's had since Isabella died. Do you think I can live with that?" Before I could argue further, my phone rang again. 45 minutes, Alexandra, don't be late." This time I hung up on him. "We need to get Anna somewhere safe," I said. "Can we call the Hendersons? Tell them to take her somewhere public, a mall, a restaurant, somewhere with lots of people." Daniel was already dialing. I listened to him explain to Mrs. Henderson that there was a family emergency, that Anna needed to stay with them overnight, that under no circumstances should they let anyone else take her. "Done," he said when he hung up. "They're taking her to Chuck E. Cheese and then to their house. She'll be safe." "Good. Now I need to go." "We need to go," Daniel corrected. I wanted to argue more, but there wasn't time, and honestly, the thought of facing Ivan alone terrified me more than I wanted to admit. The drive to Griffith Observatory felt like the longest and shortest trip of my life. Daniel held my hand the entire way, neither of us talking much. What was there to say? We were driving toward a confrontation with a man who had killed at least 2 people to protect his secrets, armed with nothing but hope that a man named Miguel would be watching from the shadows. When we pulled into the parking lot, the observatory looked like something from a movie. All those white domes against the darkening sky, the city lights beginning to twinkle below us. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt ominous. "There," Daniel said, pointing toward a figure standing near the main entrance. Even from a distance, I could tell it was Ivan. He was tall, well-dressed, standing with the confidence of a man who believed he controlled the situation. But there was something predatory about his posture, something that made every instinct I had scream danger. "Remember?" Daniel said as we got out of the car. "Keep him talking. The longer we can drag this out, the better chance we have." I nodded, though my mouth was too dry to speak. As we walked toward Ivan, I caught sight of another figure in the shadows near the building. Older, weathered, but with familiar eyes. Miguel, our father, watching and waiting for justice that was 25 years overdue. Even smiled when he saw us approaching, but it was the smile of a predator who had cornered his prey. "Alexandra," he said, his voice warm and friendly, as if we were old friends meeting for coffee. "You look so much like your sister. It's really quite remarkable. Where's Anna?" I demanded. "Safe, for now." His smile widened. "But that all depends on how reasonable you're willing to be." Standing face to face with Ivan Mitchell under the Los Angeles sky, I felt like I was looking at the devil himself. He was handsome in that polished, expensive way that money can buy. Perfectly styled silver hair, a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, and eyes that were completely, utterly cold. "You know," he said conversationally, as if we were discussing the weather. "Isabella had that same defiant look in her eyes right before she died. It's amazing how genetics work, isn't it?" "You killed her," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I prevented a catastrophe," he corrected. "Isabella was going to destroy everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built. She was going to take Anna away from me, expose secrets that needed to stay buried, ruin lives that didn't deserve to be ruined." "So you murdered her?" Ivan shrugged, like we were discussing the weather. I preferred to think of it as damage control. Isabella was always too emotional, too idealistic. She couldn't see the bigger picture. Daniel stepped closer to me, and I could feel the anger radiating from him like heat. "She was your lover, the mother of your child. How could I what? Choose practical solutions over sentiment?" Ivan laughed, and the sound made my skin crawl. "Daniel, you've always been too soft. It's why you never would have made it in business without my help." Isabella understood that. "Eventually, she knew I was the stronger man." "Is that why she was planning to leave you?" I asked. "Because you were so strong." For the first time, Ivan's composure slipped, his jaw tightened, and something dark flashed in his eyes. Isabella was confused. She'd been asking questions, stirring up trouble, getting ideas in her head about twins and family secrets. I tried to redirect her attention, tried to make her see reason, by sabotaging her car, by eliminating a problem before it became a catastrophe. He looked at me with something like pity, just like I'm going to eliminate you. "Where is Anna?" Daniel demanded. "Anna is exactly where she should be, with her real father. Do you honestly think I'd let you raise my daughter, Daniel? Fill her head with your weak, sentimental ideas about morality and justice?" My blood ran cold. "You took her. I retrieved what was mine. Anna belongs with me, just like Isabella should have stayed with me. But don't worry, she'll be well cared for. I have plans for her future that don't include either of you." I thought about Anna, scared and confused, wondering where I was and why I hadn't come to save her. The image of her frightened face made something inside me snap. "You're insane if you think you can just take her and disappear." "Am I? I've been planning this for months, Alexandra. Ever since I realized who you were. Ever since I understood that history was repeating itself." He pulled out his phone and showed us a photo. Anna, sitting in what looked like a hotel room, holding Peanut and looking terrified. "One call from me, and my associates will take Anna somewhere you'll never find her." "Is that really what you want? What do you want?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "I want you to disappear, permanently, just like your sister did, just like your mother did. The Sinclair family has too many inconvenient daughters. And Daniel," Ivan looked at Daniel with something like amusement. "Daniel is a romantic fool, but he's not a threat. Without you filling his head with conspiracy theories, he'll go back to his quiet life of grief and guilt. He might even be grateful. Eventually." "You're wrong," Daniel said quietly. "About everything." "Am I? Let's see how wrong I am." Ivan reached into his jacket and pulled out a gun. Not a huge, dramatic movie gun, but a small, efficient pistol that looked deadly in his manicured hands. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk with me to my car. We're going to take a little drive, just like Isabella and I did. And by tomorrow morning, Los Angeles will have another tragic accident to mourn. And if we refuse, then Anna dies tonight. And you die anyway. At least this way. She gets to live." I looked at Daniel, seeing my own desperation reflected in his eyes. We were trapped, and Ivan knew it. He'd planned this perfectly, using Anna as leverage, knowing we'd do anything to protect her. "Okay," I said. "I'll come with you, but let Daniel go. He's not part of this." "I'm afraid that's not possible. Daniel knows too much now. Besides, it would be suspicious if he didn't die trying to save you. Very romantic, don't you think?" Ivan gestured with the gun toward the parking lot. "Shall we go?" We started walking, my mind racing through possibilities. Miguel was out there somewhere, but I couldn't see him. Maybe he'd been caught. Maybe he'd never existed. Maybe Mom had been lying about everything. Maybe we were truly alone. That's when I heard it. A voice calling my name from across the parking lot. "Alexandra." We all turned to see a small figure running toward us. Anna, her yellow dress bright against the darkness, Peanut clutched in her arms. "Anna, no!" I screamed, but she kept running. "I got away," she panted when she reached us. "The bad man was sleeping and I climbed out the window like you taught me." Ivan's face had gone completely white. "That's impossible." My men were watching her. "Your men weren't watching for an 8-year-old with rock climbing skills," a new voice said from behind us. We turned to see a man emerging from the shadows. Older, weathered, with kind eyes and hands that shook slightly as he pointed a gun at Ivan's back. "Miguel," I whispered. "Hello, mija," he said softly, never taking his eyes off Ivan. "I've been waiting a long time for this moment." Ivan spun around, his own gun wavering between Miguel and us. "You're supposed to be dead. So are my daughters. So is the woman I loved. But sometimes the dead don't stay buried." "This is touching," Ivan said, his voice tight with panic. "But you're outnumbered. I have people everywhere, backup plans, resources you can't imagine." "Had," Miguel corrected. "Past tense. Your associates are currently explaining everything to the FBI, turns out. When you threaten to kill a child, people get very cooperative very quickly. That's when I realized we weren't alone in the parking lot." There were figures moving in the darkness, people with badges and guns surrounding us from all sides. Ivan saw them too, his face contorted with rage as he realized his perfect plan was falling apart. "If I can't have everything," he snarled, "then no one can." He raised his gun, and for a moment, I thought he was going to shoot Anna. Instead, he pointed it at me, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Just like your sister," he said. 2 shots rang out in the night air. Ivan fell to the ground. Miguel's smoking gun still pointed at where he'd been standing, but Ivan had gotten his shot off too, and I felt a burning pain in my shoulder as the impact spun me around. "Alexandra." Daniel caught me as I fell, his hands pressing against the wound to stop the bleeding. "I'm okay," I gasped, though the pain was making my vision blur. "Anna, is Anna okay?" "I'm here," Anna said, her small voice shaking as she knelt beside me. "You saved me, just like you promised you would." As the FBI agents swarmed the scene and paramedics arrived to treat my wound, I looked up at the sky above Griffith Observatory. The stars were coming out, bright and clear, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. It was over. Ivan was dead, his conspiracy exposed, his threats silenced forever. But more than that, I was looking at my real family. Miguel, the father I'd never known, Anna, the daughter of my heart, and Daniel, the man I'd fallen in love with without even realizing it. We were broken, all of us, damaged by secrets and lies and violence. But we were alive, and we were together, and sometimes that's enough to build something beautiful from the wreckage. 6 months later, I'm standing in the kitchen of what used to be the Sinclair mansion, but now feels like home, in a way it never did before. The morning sun is streaming through the windows, and Anna is sitting at the breakfast bar, humming while she helps me make pancakes. Elephant-shaped ones, of course. "Tell me the story again," she says, like she does every morning while we cook together. "Which story?" I ask, though I already know which one she means. "The one about how you found us." I smile, flipping a particularly lopsided elephant pancake. "Well, it all started with a mistake. The trial was a media circus, but it's over now. Ivan's empire of corruption collapsed like a house of cards once the FBI started digging. Turns out, he'd been involved in more than just murder and adoption fraud. There were business dealings that made headlines for weeks, political connections that reached all the way to Washington, money laundering schemes that had been going on for decades. Miguel testified about what happened the night Isabella and I were born, about Hope's death, about the 25 years he'd spent gathering evidence and waiting for justice. Mom testified too, her voice shaking but determined as she told the court about taking me in, about the years of fear and silence. But it was Anna's testimony that broke everyone's hearts. She was so small in that big courtroom, clutching Peanut and speaking in a voice barely above a whisper as she told the judge about the scary man who took her, about how I'd taught her to be brave, about how she wanted to stay with her real family. The judge ruled that Daniel would retain full custody of Anna, despite the lack of biological connection. "Love makes a family," she said, "not DNA." But she also granted Miguel visitation rights as Anna's biological grandfather, recognizing that family is complicated and that Anna deserved to know where she came from. Daniel and I got married 3 weeks ago, in the same chapel where Isabella's funeral had been held. It felt right somehow, to transform that space from a place of grief into a place of new beginnings. Anna was my maid of honor. Wearing a yellow dress and carrying a bouquet of sunflowers, Miguel walked me down the aisle, tears streaming down his weathered face as he placed my hand in Daniel's. "Take care of my daughter," he whispered to Daniel, and I heard him say the words my biological father never got the chance to say. Mom was there too, in a wheelchair but beaming with pride. The treatments for her illness have been going well. Turns out, when you can afford the best medical care money can buy, a lot of incurable conditions become very manageable. She's living in the guest house now, close enough to help with Anna, but independent enough to maintain her dignity. Michelle started at UCLA in the fall, pre-med program with a full scholarship funded by the Isabella Sinclair Memorial Foundation, something Daniel and I established to help young women pursue education. She calls me every week, still amazed that her sister went from waitressing to living in Beverly Hills in the span of a year. "It's like a fairy tale," she said during our last conversation, "except instead of a prince, You got a widower with trust issues and a traumatized kid. Hey, I protested, laughing. My widower and traumatized kid are perfect, thank you very much. And they are perfect, in their broken, healing way. Anna has started talking to new people again, slowly but surely. She's in therapy, real therapy this time, with someone who understands that healing takes time and can't be rushed. She still has nightmares sometimes, still gets scared when she hears loud noises, but she's learning to trust the world again. Last week, she asked if she could call me Mom instead of Alexandra. Are you sure? I asked her. You had a mom who loved you very much. I don't want to replace her. Anna considered this seriously, the way she considers everything. Isabella was my first mom, she said finally. But you're my now mom. Can't I have both? That's when I cried. Happy tears, the kind that come when something broken inside you finally heals. Daniel and I are learning to navigate our relationship without the shadow of secrets and lies hanging over us. It's strange, loving someone while looking exactly like their deceased wife. But we're making it work. He's teaching me about the business world, about investments and board meetings and all the responsibilities that come with being a Sinclair. I'm teaching him about letting go, about trusting people, about the difference between existing and actually living. We've turned Isabella's old room into a library for Anna, filling it with books and art supplies and all the things an 8-year-old genius needs to explore the world. But we kept one thing, the portrait of Isabella above the fireplace in Daniel's study. Anna likes to visit it sometimes, to tell Isabella about her day, to ask her questions about love and life, and whether elephant pancakes really are the best kind. Miguel has become a regular fixture in our lives. He's teaching Anna Spanish, telling her stories about hope in the garden where he first fell in love with our mother. He's also teaching me about the family I never knew I had, about traditions and culture, and the man who loved Hope Sinclair enough to spend 25 years seeking justice for her death. Your mother was brave, he told me yesterday as we sat in the garden, watching Anna chase butterflies. She knew the risks of defying her family, but she chose love anyway. You have her courage, Misha. I don't feel brave, I admitted. Most of the time, I feel like I'm making it up as I go along. That's what bravery is, he said with a smile. Doing what needs to be done, even when you're scared. Sometimes I think about the other timeline, the one where I never made that mistake at the airport, where I stayed a waitress in San Antonio, struggling to make ends meet, never knowing about the sister I'd lost or the family I'd found. It seems impossible now, like a story about someone else entirely. The truth is, that hug wasn't a mistake at all. It was fate, destiny, the universe course, correcting after 25 years of lies. It brought me to Daniel, to Anna, to the family I was always meant to have. But more than that, it brought me to myself, to Alexandra Sinclair, the girl who was separated from her twin, who survived against all odds, who found her way home eventually. As I watch Anna laughing in the garden, as I feel Daniel's arm around my waist and Miguel's quiet presence beside us, I realize something that took me 23 years to understand. Family isn't about blood or DNA or the circumstances of your birth. Family is about the people who choose to love you, who stay when things get difficult, who build something beautiful from the broken pieces of what came before. That wrong hug in Lax didn't just change my life. It saved it. It brought me back to where I belonged, to people who needed me as much as I needed them. And sometimes, when the morning light hits the kitchen just right, and Anna is humming while she makes pancakes, I swear I can feel Isabella's presence too, not haunting us, but blessing us, grateful that the sister she never got to meet is taking care of the daughter she'll always love. The past can't be changed, but the future is ours to write, and we're writing it together, one elephant pancake at a time.